Over the last decade, Dagestani and Chechen fighters have carved a dominant path in the UFC. With imposing wrestling and relentless pressure, fighters from the Caucasus region have taken the organization by storm. But something odd happens once they reach the top of their divisions.
What happened to Hamzat? He used to fight all the time. You know, he constantly was fighting, and then all of a sudden he just stopped fighting.
Fighters who'd often show up to perform many times per year suddenly go missing for months on end. So, while fighters like Khabib and Hamzat have been some of the most dominant forces of the last few years, a question still lingers. Why are they so inactive? Coming up to the UFC rankings, fighters from the Caucasus region are usually pretty active. Khabib Nurmagomedov himself kicked off his UFC career with 5 fights in just 2 years. Back then, the Eagle had something to prove.
At that time, it was almost impossible sign from Russia, you know? And I was first guy, they signed me, and a lot of people look at like fighters, coaches, like analytics, like media people, like everybody look at like, okay, it's like he's only 23 years old, but he have good record, but we don't think this he's UFC level. And I think, no, I'm gonna show these guys. I'm gonna show these guys how I can become best in the world.
When he was healthy, Khabib was showing up at least 2 times per year. However, once he reached the top of the division, his schedule slowed down considerably. Suddenly, seeing him compete once a year became the norm. Even if a fight got booked, having Khabib actually show up on fight night was far from a certainty. Throughout his career, he had to cancel fights several times, including bouts against Tony Ferguson and Donald Cerrone. And when we look at another champion from the Caucasus region, Khamzat Chimaev, the story gets even more dramatic. Chimaev made a name for himself by having the most active early career in the UFC. In his first 2 fights, the Chechen had a turnaround of just 16 days between bouts, the fastest in modern UFC history. After only 66 days, Khamzat already had 3 wins in the UFC, which at the time seemed like the birth of one of the most active and dangerous welterweights we've ever seen.
The guy's special. I've been in this game my whole life. I've never seen anything like him. He's special, he's different, he wants to fight again. So, you know, I've never been in a position where I'm like, who's next? How do we get him a fight? How do we get him over here? How do we do this? How do we do that? It's fun and I like it. And I think when you're a fight fan, a guy like this is the type of guy that you love to watch and follow and hate, you know, and whatever it might be. This guy is one of the most special fighters I've ever seen, if not the most special guy that I've ever come across.
But after that explosive start, his career slowed quite a bit. After 5 years later, with only 6 performances inside the cage, today Khamzat is the middleweight champion. And surprisingly, 7 months after winning the belt, he still doesn't seem too concerned about lining up his next fight.
What is going on? What is going on? When are you gonna fight? Who are you gonna fight? Who's the opponent gonna be? Because, you know, there's gotta be a fight coming up soon.
I don't know, bro.
This is far from exclusive to only Khamzat and Khabib. While the reasons for their inactivity differ, fighters like Magomed Ankalaev and Movsar Evloev have also faced long stretches on the sidelines. Adding to that mix, these fighters are often criticized for their unwillingness to play ball with the promotion. Caucasus athletes tend to be very selective with their matchups. We seldom hear about a fighter from Khabib's team coming in on short notice. As for Khamzat, the middleweight champion has become so inactive that we're never really sure if he'll even show up. So, what's really behind these long layoffs? And why do they seem to hit Dagestani and Chechen fighters harder than anyone else? The reality comes down to 4 main factors. Hey, just a quick one, we've just crossed 60,000 subs, we're looking to hit 100k by the end of the year. So if you're enjoying the video, we'd appreciate if you could take the time to go subscribe. Everyone knows how taxing combat sports training can be on the body, and in the Caucasus, athletes tend to begin training at a very early age, and this wear and tear could make fighters from there more prone to injury. After all, Dagestanis are known for their punishing training regimes and a culture that demands relentless discipline.
Why are these guys calling you crazy?
Honestly, it goes too much, Coach. I agree.
Coach, please. Huh?
Every day kill everybody. Please. I don't know why. Buy for him ticket and send him Russia, please.
These strong training sessions, while necessary for the type of wrestling-heavy game most of the fighters from that region have, they also explain why they can get so inactive. Injuries, mostly suffered during camp, have stalled the careers of many. Khabib himself faced many injuries throughout his career.
And I tried to come back. I turned one more time ACL and one more surgery. I tried to come back. I broke my ribs. After that, I tried to come back. I have my surgery on my back. You know, it was like, it was very hard time.
After beating Rafael dos Anjos in April 2014, Khabib Nurmagomedov's rise was abruptly stalled by a 2-year layoff caused by serious injuries. He tore his ACL in training, then suffered a broken rib during recovery, costing him 2 years off his prime. And even when he finally came back, the shadow of injuries never really left. The Dagestani was forced to pull out several times after, which only added to the frustration.
Fought once in 8 years. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't fight too frequent for my liking. Like, for me to commit to something like that, I need to be solid proof that people are going to show up, and he's a consistent pull-out merchant.
Movsar Evloev, despite being undefeated, has had multiple layoffs due to recurring injuries sustained in camp, and the same can be said for Ankalaev. For many, the grind crosses into overtraining. The very thing that builds champions also leaves them broken, sidelined for months at a time.
Those guys train so hard. The only reason why I feel like those guys do lose is obviously if somebody's better than them, but if they gas out because they're overtrained. They fucking train all the time.
But injuries aren't the only thing slowing these fighters down. There's another challenge outside the gym that can be just as brutal. At 6 feet 2 inches tall, with a walk-around weight close to 215 pounds, it made no sense that Khamzat Chimaev ever competed at welterweight. To make 170, the Chechen wrestler had to cut close to 40 pounds, a brutal process that tested his body as much as any opponent.
Don't stress.
No stress, don't worry.
Take out.
At that weight class, he looked bigger and stronger than every opponent put in front of him, but that would come at a cost. Overtraining and extreme weight cutting can be a dangerous mix, and while putting his body through the grinder to get that competitive edge, Khamzat may have pushed himself to the very brink.
He can't train. His friends called me and like, hey, Khamzat can't even speak, you know. His fever is so high, his headache is so much, you know, muscle pain and everything. And then an ambulance came and got him to the hospital, you know. And even when he was in the hospital, he called me like when he called me, he thought he was going to die. He was really bad, you know.
Bad weight cuts, overtraining, and a hard battle with COVID symptoms may have severely affected his immune system. So much so that since failing to make weight in his bout against Kevin Holland years ago, no one really knows if Chimaev will be able to remain healthy enough to make it to fight night consistently.
Every time this guy gets close to a fight, like I saw video footage of him on the ground, violently ill, and he was hospitalized again. So he hadn't trained for like 3 or 4 days or 5 days. I don't know exactly what the number was, but we could not put him into a fight next weekend.
Any sense of how long he'll be out, and how concerned are you?
Yeah, I mean, you said it best yourself. I mean, I saw this kid on Fight Island. He wanted to fight the next weekend. I let him fight the next weekend. He looked incredible. You know, he's been on this tear, and then, you know, lately it's been hard to get him into the octagon. Every time he gets close to fighting, he gets really sick.
Other fighters like Usman, Islam, and even Khabib were also cutting a lot to make their respective weight classes. Makhachev stepped into a division 15 pounds above lightweight, and even then, he didn't look small standing across from natural welterweights. And while coming in heavier and stronger can help, especially for wrestling-heavy game plans, it could limit how often a fighter can show up on fight night. After all, there's only so many times an athlete can dehydrate their body to the limit in a single year before the consequences start to catch up.
Tony looked off tonight. Thought he looked slow, and I would have to imagine that cutting weight twice in a month will affect you.
Most Dagestani fighters have high mileage on their body due to years of training. When adding several weight cuts to the mix, it's not really a surprise when you hear about them pulling out. But that's only part of the reason why fighters from the Caucasus tend to fight less. Yet beyond the training and the weight cuts, an equally powerful reason lies in the traditions they live by. In Muslim culture, adherents observe an entire month of fasting from dawn to sunset. This period, known as Ramadan, serves as a time of discipline and reflection. But for fighters, it means adjusting schedules and often stepping away from the cage.
Sport is different, but Ramadan for me is number one.
Sport, it's okay. UFC, everything. But Ramadan, this is my different mental. This is different. This is everything for me. I cannot fight Ramadan.
Training hours get limited during that month, as food and particularly water intake are restricted during daytime hours, long cardio sessions, and even lifting can become nearly impossible to sustain. Some fighters still train through Ramadan, even though the process is punishing.
You can't drink water during the day.
No, you're not drinking water or no
Are you
water or food during
training
the day.
during the day?
Yeah, so I'll train in the morning at 10:30 a.m.
No water.
No water. So I'll train at 10:30, and then I'll have another practice at 6, and then.
And so at 6, what time you're allowed to eat when the sun goes
I'm
down?
allowed to eat. Usually during those times, it was during the sun was going down at like 7:38.
So the moment the sun goes down,
You can
that's
drink.
when you can drink water, and that's
Yeah.
when you can eat food.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're training with no water.
Yeah, I'm not training with no water or food.
For most of them, especially those fighting out of regions far from the US, signing up for a camp during Ramadan simply isn't an option. And the thing is, for matchmakers, a month off means more than just 30 days without fights. Cards that happen close to and shortly after Ramadan also become harder to fill since most fighters won't commit to a camp during or immediately after the fasting month. Suddenly, that 30-day window stretches into a 3-month gap. This means that while Western athletes have the entire year to train and compete, fighters observing Ramadan see their calendar shrink. And this also explains why Dagestani and Chechen fighters can be less active than others. When you combine a shorter competitive window with brutal weight cuts and overtraining injuries, you start to see why the most dominant fighters can also be the most absent. And even after Ramadan is over, fighters from the Caucasus have yet another obstacle. Both Dagestan and Chechnya are republics in the Russian Federation, and Russians have historically difficult time getting visa applications to the US. Even in the best of times, the process can take weeks, sometimes months to get approved. And the issue only got worse once the Ukraine war emerged. For Hamzat, the visa issues were one of the main culprits of his inactivity.
Hazmat Chimaev can't get into the US. It's some kind of a visa issue. I don't know what's going on.
Chimaev had 0 fights on American soil from 2022 until 2025. During that stretch, he could only compete when the UFC staged events in Abu Dhabi. While no one really knows for certain why it happened, many theorized that his close affiliations with Chechenya's leader could have something to do with it.
People don't even know about that. So that's probably why they don't get a lot of shit for it. And people don't really know who Kadyrov is. They just know him as the guy with Chimaev.
It took him years before he could finally return to the United States, and when he did the most of that opportunity. Hamzat completely dominated Dricus du Plessis to win the middleweight title. But while he doesn't seem in a rush to return, he insists his visa issues are finally behind him.
It wasn't my bad, it wasn't my fault, you know. I didn't have everyone knows I didn't have the visa to US. That's why I didn't fight only once in Abu Dhabi. So now Donald Trump here, so we go for a fight.
Still, the damage is done. For 3 years, the UFC couldn't reliably book him in the US, which is where most of the biggest cards happen. For American fighters, accepting a bout on 2 weeks' notice is doable. Even Brazilians can secure travel permits within days. For Russian fighters, it's a whole different ballgame. And it's not just Hamzat. Ankalaev, Pavlovich, Zabit, and even Habib's late father, Abdul Nurmagomedov, all faced visa hurdles. And here's where it becomes a matchmaking nightmare. If you're Dana White trying to build a pay-per-view main event, you can't risk booking a fighter who might not get cleared to enter the country. But at least on that note, the current administration appears less restrictive. So when you add it all up, the pattern becomes clear. Religious obligations, punishing weight cuts, injuries, and even travel restrictions contribute to why fighters from the Caucasus are not seen as often inside the cage. Stack up those 4 things together, and you get fighters who can dominate when they show up, but don't show up very often. And while Dagestani wrestlers may be inactive, the UFC looks ready to move past them. Watch our next video to see how the promotion has quietly stopped relying on wrestlers from the region. Thanks for watching.